My co-founding partner of Orion Worldwide Innovations, Armenia, has her opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen, government representatives, business and startup founders, welcome to Orion Summit 2023. I am Diana Arzumanyan, CEO and co-founder of Orion Worldwide Innovations Armenia. Today is a historical day, as all we are in New York City in Harvard Club. And 3 days ongoing, we are speaking all about investments, about money. Our summit slogan is Investment Position Armenia. Cross-border investments, outbound and inbound, will help to support Armenian economy. Orion Worldwide Innovations Armenia with BAJ Accelerator, last 3 years, we fundraised more than $52 million. And until the end of the year, we'll close more than $50 million. Orion Worldwide Innovations, also initiator of merger and acquisition movement in Armenia. And right now, we have 4 open deals, acquisition deals, and hope until the end of the year we close some of them. I wish all of us a successful day with high energy. And today is also a historical day because we will have announced our special product that will change startup ecosystem standards. And now I want to give the floor to a legendary woman, Emma Arakelyan.
Well said. We do have a program today to summarize everything that we were talking about the past 3 days. Capital, the power of mind, and you can see some representation here. We have a pomegranate. We have a book about Armenian history of 300 years ruling, leading, driving innovation, trade, law, policies, even custom policies, culture in 40 plus countries, 17th century all the way to the beginning of 20th century. What we are starting today, and the last panel that we will have about digital Julfa network, we are going to announce the program execution plan. Last year, this time, June 22, we announced the program initiation. Only after 12 months, we are going to announce the execution plan. And a lot of work has been done, and we will reveal that during our last session. So the momentum is going to be building up throughout the day to that conclusion of the plan for next steps. All of you have received a small box of a gift, women and men with a small different color on it. So please, everybody who has the box of the gift, please wear it today, starting the journey of the execution. That's the first thing to start with. You wear it to be part of it. So you are welcome to join Digital Julfa Network program starting now. The gifts are from Tonir Wedding, Armenian company that we advised 4 years ago in Yerevan. They grew, they became a growing company, a startup that is actually now part of this journey as well. So we want to thank Tonir Wedding Company for the thought process, for the booklet in it. Please read the history. So now, welcome to the Digital Julfa Network, the Armenian legacy to bring it up, re-establish as a nation with capital, with wealth, with power of mind, and with innovation. Round of applause for this mission to start. The next thing I would like to announce is we have sponsors, investors, capital, representation from banks, venture capital organizations. We have our Armenia government here who will do the next opening remarks. We have New York City Mayor's Office representation who will deliver the speech as well, how they are going to participate in this entire Armenian movement, starting from New York City and throughout the world. And we will also do our anthems just before that, and with Vahan, one of the distinguished singers worldwide known, who is a pianist, composer, and a singer and conductor. With that, I would like to invite to the stage Minister of Economy. Do I do the anthems before or after? Before. So I'm inviting Vahan, our beloved Armenian artist, singer, conductor, pianist, everything above, and he performed on all stages globally, internationally. Welcome, Vahan. Stage is yours. Everybody.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn early light what so proudly we held at the twilight last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Mer hayrenik azadangach vorabrele dare dar yur vorteka arganchumen azadangach hayastan yur vorteka argan shumen azadan kahayastan. Amen eindech mahmie mart me on kompet merni baits yerani for yurazki Azadultian kazovi baits yerani for yurazki Azadultian kazovi.
With such a powerful voice, we're going to have our speakers with their power voices to continue the sessions. I would like to invite our dear Mr. Vahan Kerobyan, Minister of Economy of the Republic of Armenia. Welcome, Mr. Vahan Kerobyan.
Good morning. Good morning, dear friends, dear colleagues. Let me first express my gratitude to the organizers of this event, Arakelyan and the whole Orion Summit team, because there is an incredible work that has been done for the last several months to organize this, I think, very important event in New York City, to brainstorm, to collect together different kinds of investors and different kinds of entrepreneurs that can think together and develop ideas how we can boost investments in Armenia. You know that the economic situation in Armenia is pretty good, and last year we ended up with one of the highest growths in the world, 12.6% GDP growth in 2022. And in 2023, we have the same pace of growth, more than 12% growth in economy this year. Today, and the job situation is also very good. Just a couple of hours ago, our Prime Minister announced the new record number of jobs, 718,000 jobs in Armenia, which is again an astonishing result, I think. And we think that this economic situation is a result of reforms that we performed over the last 5 years to ease the business environment, to welcome investments, to liberalize business conduct and doing business in many sectors of economy, and also programs that we have and we put in force to support investments, to support new business ideas, to support modernization. And some of the programs are especially very successful. I would definitely mention Economy Modernization Program that was able to support almost 2,000 companies in the last 1 year to modernize their operations, their equipment, to attract high-skilled foreign workforce, so on. One of the main focuses of our economic policy is the attraction of investments. So this is needed to really change the structure of our economy, to be able to move our economic growth model from the consumption-based growth to investment-led growth. And last year the results were really good. We ended up with, first time, we ended up with $1 billion foreign direct investments, which is more than 5% of our GDP. And overall investments ended up with more than $4 billion, $4.2 billion of total investments. Again, proportion to GDP is almost 22%, which is a very good result compared to what we had previously. I want to also share with you the nuances of our investment policy, and the main idea is that we are very much focused to bring to Armenia Fortune 500 companies, the companies that spend on the R&D twice as much funds than the whole other world altogether. And we can also say that there are some successes there too. We were able to lend one of the largest companies in the world, NVIDIA, to Armenia. We have Cisco, AMD, Oracle, Adobe, and many other high-quality companies in Armenia. Recently, Microchip Technology, which is a $50 billion market cap company, acquired an Armenian startup, and hopefully EMA's efforts will also support this movement too. The recent very good news also is that largest US banks like Morgan Stanley, Fidelity, and others started to invest in Armenian dram denominated government bonds, which is a very good news for us, and shows that US largest banks are also very much interested in Armenian government bonds. Also, Chinese largest banks are also investing in Armenian dram bonds. Today we here are with our friends and colleagues from Enterprise Armenia, which is the first window to support foreign direct investments in Armenia, and they will be happy to discuss with you your ideas, how we can lend your ideas in Armenia's economy, and also our colleagues from ANIF, Armenian National Investment Fund, that are here also to discuss and to show the instruments that can support investments to Armenia. So with this large team that also represent Ministry of High-Tech Industry, we are here to discuss and to support your possible ideas to invest in Armenia. So once again, I thank you, Emma and her team, and also everyone who is here to discuss and to present their ideas for the investments in Armenia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vahan Kerobyan. Your support is tremendous. Your belief in what we are trying to do globally with all Armenians is tremendous. And the support has already shown some results. So welcome to the government support, and thank you so much for being here. We proceed with our opening remarks, and the next one to present is from a mayor's office of New York City. We got that attention, and we got special attention because Parker has proved to be a really strong and supportive colleague. And in a short period of time, we created a really good understanding of maybe how we can start promoting and working together as New York City, Yerevan, at the same time doing projects. So I would like to welcome Mr. Parker Sheddy, Director of International Affairs and Strategic Growth for New York City Economic Development Corporation, known as EDC. Welcome.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here, even though it's a rainy Thursday morning. As Emma said, I am the Director of International Affairs and Strategic Growth for EDC. What that means is that in my role, fortunately and unfortunately, I run foreign investment on behalf of New York City, as well as forge international partnerships with seemingly every country and across every industry. So in that sense, the world is my oyster. And I gotta say, you can consider EDC similar to an economy ministry as the business concierge for New York City and the front door for businesses to enter our market. We also do work as best we can on bilateral trade, even though outbound is not directly within our mission. I will say, though you guys have seen this over the last few days, this is a really exciting time in my mind for New York City. It's safe to say that for all of us, it's been a really tough 3 years when it comes to COVID and the pandemic, and nowhere has that been felt in my mind more than in the heart of New Yorkers, myself included. That being said, New York is back, in my opinion, back and thriving more than ever. For example, last month we hit 99.7% of pre-COVID employment, which I'm very, very proud of. We also are at 70% pre-COVID transit demand, which, dare I say, in this building, compares to Boston at 35%. So when it comes to the return to office, our efforts are actually really, really good these days. We've also hit 250,000 jobs since the end of 2021. And fun fact, 1 out of every 9 businesses in New York City have been created in the last 18 months alone since this mayor took office. Now, I have to be honest, I know many of you were in LA before this, and I lived in Santa Monica for a period of time, and I know there's a strong Armenian community there. But let me give you a sense, if you didn't get it over the last few days, of the actual scope and scale of the talent ecosystem here in New York City. We have 3.2 million people with bachelor's degrees here. That's more than Philadelphia, Boston, LA, and Miami combined. So that's a heck of an ecosystem and talent pipeline for companies. Not only that, but last month we surpassed San Francisco in creating the most startups per month for the first time ever. Thank you, much appreciated. And then, lastly, we're number 2 in venture capital funding. And honestly, with the current Brexit situation, we are nipping on the heels of London very, very quickly. And I guess moving on that, I'd say, I think, though you must have seen this week, thanks to Emma and Diana's efforts, a very diverse ecosystem here. People normally think of New York in terms of financial and business services and traditional corporate industries. And while we value those industries and they're a key part of our city, we're really diversifying from an industry standpoint. Our mayor's committed $1 billion over the next 10 years to life sciences. He's committed $500 million to offshore wind, which when you fly into JFK in 10 years, you'll see these giant windmills that are 400 feet tall and about the size of 2 soccer fields wide in terms of the blade. So a massive undertaking. There are other industries we're growing in as well that you wouldn't expect. Sports, film, AI, climate tech, all non-traditional industries for New York City. So really exciting time in that sense. And I know you guys visited Cornell Tech, or many of you did, but we are focused a lot on the outer boroughs, as we call them, the non-Manhattan, if you will. And we're converting old industrial sites, old warehouses, into film studios, tech labs, R&D facilities. EDC actually manages a warehouse that we've converted up in the Bronx into a film studio where some of the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel episodes were filmed. So I'm very proud of that. Now, that being said, we're in Midtown today, and I don't think we can ignore the elephant in the room that Midtown, more than other parts of our city, have been hit really, really hard. We are, of course, returning to office more than, I think, many other cities, but we're redesigning Midtown. We are considering residential retrofits, so converting all these old office buildings into potential residential mixed use. We're adding green space, closing off streets, and really envisioning Midtown as a live, work, play environment rather than just a commuter area. So hopefully when you come back in 5 years, it'll look vastly different. So all that to say, because we have to get on with the program, the city that never sleeps is awake again, as cheesy as that sounds. And I think that's because New Yorkers are inherently really, really strong. Resilient people that have been through a lot, whether it was the financial crisis in 2009 or 9/11 or this pandemic. And I think that's something we share with Armenians in particular in terms of grit and value and a way of doing business. And for that reason, I'm very bullish and encouraged by working with the Armenian business community and think that there's a lot of potential for collaboration and future investment there. So with that being said, I'll be around all day hanging out if you want to chat and talk. And on behalf of Mayor Eric Adams, welcome to New York.
I love every time I love every time he talks about Armenian community being strong in New York City. Please, Parker, would you promise every meeting opening statement you have from now on? And that pin on you, which is the Digital Jewel Fund Network. Please have it with you. I said, do you know what this is? This is about Armenian power that's coming back globally. Thank you so much for being here, for your support. Our collaboration is just starting. And by the way, if you plan to be in Armenia later this year, plan to be in Armenia later in November, because you can see Parker somewhere on the Yerevan streets. Thank you so much. Let's round of applause for that. I'm being reminded nicely, thank you, I love my team. I'm being reminded that we have a special present for you from one of our sponsors. Arakelyan is here to give you a special present from Armenia. Thank you so much, Arakelyan team, and thank you so much to our sponsors. I'm going to take a quick moment. We have our platinum sponsors, gold sponsors, and silver sponsors at the bottom of this screen all day long, and we want to say special thank you. It's not just sponsorship, it's belief, it's trust in what we're trying to do together. Can we do a round of applause to our sponsors? Our co-organizer of this event is the Armenian Ministry, is the Minister of Economy of Armenia, is our co-organizer of this entire event. Thank you. We have Festex, who is bringing to the world a new blockchain and NFT and AI solutions. You can actually go in and start using this platform and become the customer. Thank you so much. We have Covenant VC, who is actually presenting next as a keynote speaker. Covenant VC is our another platinum sponsor, who is a venture capital established in New York, and you're going to hear more about. And before I hand it to a representative of Covenant VC, I have a special announcement to make. That's part of the Digital Jewel Fund Network. As you can see, I a little bit lost my voice, but I'm continuing. Yeremyan family, Yeremyan projects. Who has ever not been in the Armenian restaurants with a high quality? It's a showcasing the culture of Armenia. It's not just food. It's food diplomacy, it's food innovation, and it's food academy. So we are saying thank you to Yeremyan projects. But they have, actually, Parker, you know this, you met them, but I'm going to say it. They are here to establish Armenian restaurant of Yeremyans in New York City and in Washington, D.C. Thank you to Yeremyans for that strategy. And Burnwe is a young startup company that we're working with them for more than 2 years. And every video that you have seen so far, that it was designed by them. So Arzumanyan and the team, young couple doing phenomenal thing globally. They work with more than 20 countries. So Burnwe is a video production company to support companies how to market your strategy and how to go to market. And Arfi and Anif, the National Funds for Investments, I think Vahan mentioned it. They're going to actually a special presentation today. So thank you, Anif and Arfi, for your support. Now, I especially love, admire, adore the last three, because those are startups that were so small just a couple of months or years ago. Now they are sponsoring this kind of event. That means there is growth. there is potential. So that's 0, Trilex, Bit 4. Thank you so much for your support. So now the announcement. This is announcement number 1. In the afternoon, we're going to have 2 more announcements. So announcement number 1. Just yesterday, we got confirmation. There were some discussions, but the confirmation was yesterday at the Harvard Club room. And Covenant VC has become Covenant Financial Group. That means it has new expanded service lines that includes real estate investments. So everybody who is here for real estate investments or real estate, mark that. Covenant VC is now investing in real estate as well. They have family offices support. So mark it, every company here planning to become a family office. And by the way, Armenia has 89% of their businesses run by families. So we have phenomenal potential to build new Rockefellers, new family offices globally known, new Liechtenstein families in Armenia. So that vision is here because there is a strong potential. So Covenant VC now has that service line to support these companies to access US through offshore or through directly to New York. So Parker, mark that note. Thank you. So now the time has come, the sentence you're looking for or waiting for. The new CEO of the Covenant Venture Capital is our Armenian fellow by name, Dr. Armen Kerobyan.
Thank you very much to our dear organizing committee today. It's not typical your first day on the job. You have an announcement in the Harvard Club with so many formidable friends, colleagues, and innovators. But here we are today. But in actuality, this journey is more than a day. I'll share with you how we got to this point. But first, as I'm hearing my dear colleague's strain in voice and the fantastic points we've been on today from the Jacobs Technion Cornell Institute, the Horizon Building, and One World Trade, please join me in acknowledging the fantastic efforts that have been done to present this week. Please. And Emma, with your voice strained or not, as we can hear the collective strain of the team, AI is still afraid of you, even with a strained voice. So with this, just yesterday, with legendary investor Karl Douglas, we confirmed that I will be taking up the mantle at Covenant Venture Capital. I'd like to underscore a few material points here. At Covenant, given the current assets under management, the extended investment lines, this marks the most significant investment firm by scale and trajectory to meaningfully look at deal flow across the Armenian ecosystem. So a pivotal point for continued economic growth. Now, in terms of how we got here, I first began my own technical training in biomedical science, understanding how formidable technologies such as neural networks behind artificial intelligence can begin changing the world. I first noted this rather strikingly in 2003, where DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects here in the US, held an autonomous vehicle challenge where cars were attempting to see. And in quite striking fashion in that year, the cars struck into each other. They went off the road. In the subsequent year, they started competing effectively. And so it became clear that technology as a force multiplication can make a difference in terms of human labor and changing the face of entire economies. This work was done across the Columbia, Cornell, and subsequently Princeton universities. I subsequently took a post after entrepreneurship efforts and success at a company called Booz Allen Hamilton. There co-wrote the Field Guide to Data Science, which marked an important development in the field of technology and innovation, which was remarked as the single most impactful piece of thought leadership in the company's 100-plus year history. Thereafter, proceeded to join a firm as the chief science officer, Genpact. So as we were discussing in the previous remarks, this is at global scale for Fortune 500. And with 100,000 people, it became clear that in Armenia, strategies such as mergers and acquisitions, and I was inspired to see the culinary diplomacy of the Yeremian projects yesterday in their video, that technology diplomacy is also possible. And indeed, a fantastic milestone as NVIDIA has come to Armenia as enabled by our ministries. I presented some work for Sir Richard Branson's Formula E team with sustainability at its core, so electric Formula One, in Aspen. Then in Aspen, one of the participants conveyed, this would be a great example for the World Congress of IT. And I asked, where is that occurring? And the answer was Armenia. So since that time, nearly 5 years ago, with many colleagues in this room, we have been working in this way to support Armenia, exactly as we heard earlier, to become investment-driven and innovation-driven as per its economy. And I'm delighted to see that across different colleagues, we are working in a coordinated way. In these very halls around Midtown, we've had the business history of the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, and we are looking here to see what is the next generation of families, sovereign wealth funds, private equity, and venture capital. Now, there's a few things I want to highlight as the world is changing, and quite rapidly. The first item is around this topic of IPO. So do you know how much Amazon IPO'd for, as in they did their initial public offering? Not more than 50 million. Snowflake, a database company, in their initial public offering just 2 years ago, raised 3.3 billion. That gap is actually quite strategic for Armenia because the distance between VC, PE, and the public markets is increasing. And in that private investment network, as in strategically positioning Armenian capital, as in strategically rallying global capital, we have this distinct opportunity in that opening. Namely, the public markets are shifting to be increasingly private in terms of where the value creation is. At Covenant, our core fund has this thesis. We operate at that intersection between venture capital and private equity vis-a-vis the three-trigger strategy. 100 million deployed, a cohort VC we track and couple our companies to, A fantastic example is the Armenian company embodied with Moxie the robot here also in attendance, and an additional round of capital for increased confidence. We have in this room the forerunners to Armenian Sovereign Wealth Fund and the subsequent activities. I was recently in the Gulf states, and the investment climate there was intriguing. Speaking with some of the strongest sovereign wealth funds on the planet, I received very intriguing input and shared concern, which I'll highlight to you today. One was strawberries. Specifically, there is food scarcity as a major challenge. In Armenia, in contrast with our colleagues in Curacao, we have water. On the strawberries, there is research in terms of coupling mangrove roots, as in having agriculture based on a saltwater basins and circular flow. The reason I highlight these shifts is the world is becoming increasingly multipolar. It is in Armenia's advantage to seek a sustainable future as the traditional oil-producing countries to the east, in the Gulf, in Scandinavia, are giving way to mineral-producing countries, including Brazil, Indonesia, Australia, Canada, and China. Indeed, Armenia has a distinctive opportunity advancing sustainability and embracing technology. In particular, AI represents a generational force multiplication on human labor. And given the number of people we have, each individual force multiplication is that more pertinent. So with this, I'd like to convey that this innovation investment activity involves strategic positioning. It's one of the reasons for one of NASA's institutes. I look to position the investing whereby we have increased economic output and the rise of new industries. Many of you in this room will decide whether Armenia has a stake in the future of sustainability technology, in space technology, in defense technology. At Covenant, for example, we have large position in Anduril, the next generation Lockheed Martin and Boeing. What companies are yet to emerge? As we have here today, Zero, Trilex, Bitvor, some native to Armenia, some transplanted in terms of their operations. I want to underscore one point here on what does it mean to be an Armenian company? It is like asking the question of what does it mean to be Armenian? And I would like with utmost precision to provide the formulation, as any jitter on this point will be detrimental to the entire economy. A startup that grows rapidly must have 3 registrations. It must have 3 at least. The first is where it can capture capital. There's only a few spots on the planet where that is possible today. They are Singapore, London, and Delaware. Neither New York, nor Paris, nor Hamburg works for that direct capital capture. I want to underscore this because there is massive confusion across many growing ecosystems on this point. However, another critical registration is where the innovation is happening. And I'm not talking about an IT outsourcing sense. I'm talking about equity. So another key registration is Armenia. And it does not matter which ones happen first. The point is that every worker, founder, advisor, investor show up on the same capital table that is held in that first registration in terms of capital capture. This is what happened for Estonia in terms of its growth. Equity was distributed and capital was collected and mobilized effectively. And the third registration for a company is simply where its anchor customers are for proximity. With this formulation, Estonia was able to double its economy from 2004 to 2008, with 10 startup unicorns driving that change. Indeed, Israel has executed this strategy quite formidably, and we heard on our visit today on Roosevelt Island this week around this strategy of equity as opposed to bleeding capital vis-a-vis a royalty, for example. So with that, those points underscored, I would encourage you to engage with us in this technology diplomacy, in this earnest drive for innovation, as we have the forerunner examples with the Julfa network that sustained 300 years. And gathered here, as we reflect and we move on for the subsequent weeks, there was a group of people, not much larger than this, that said, yes, we will use the innovation of the day, the Portuguese sailing ships, and we will connect the world. So with that, I'm very happy to see everyone here in New York. Looking forward to seeing you in Yerevan. Let's win and help win. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Armin, and congratulations again with your new role. This means a lot to Armenia. We have a really good, strong package, deal flow to represent to venture capitals and including Covenant Venture Capital. I would like to move on, and before I do that, the robot Maxi standing here has a $5.3 million investments by Covenant VC already. And we are going through closing new rounds. And we want to thank Covenant VC for their belief in Armenian startup to grow. The next person, the next keynote speaker I'm going to represent, you met her on Monday when she represented the Bank of America history, investment strategies moving forward, and all their products that they are making money and difference in the market. With today's presentation, she is going to talk specifically about innovation and how they support and how the markets are supporting the innovation through the banking. I would like to welcome Renee Nalbandyan, who is a Director, Global Strategic and Sustainable Investments of Bank of America.
Thank you, Emma. Wow, what a last 4 days it's been going through the Orion Summit, just really gathering everyone, the knowledge sharing. This is really critical to continuing the innovation and continuing the momentum. As we've heard, 12% GDP growth is immense, and we need to continue that growth. So with that, thank you for joining me today as we dive into this imperative topic, the importance of companies making strategic investments. I'd like to borrow the energy on the heels of Mr. Sheddy and Dr. Kerobyan and talking about the investments we make, as it's truly a full ecosystem, and how corporations play a role, funds play a role, and a government plays a role to really energize a country. And as Dr. Kerobyan mentioned, we have a case study of Estonia, we have a case study of Israel. Why not Armenia be the next one? So I'd like to start with how Bank of America thinks about the lens, as I am part of the group that makes these investments. We are the centralized equity platform for Bank of America. And I'm going to do that by talking about how we think about investing in businesses and how we think about investing in community. As you may recall, on Monday, I talked about how we can only be as successful as a bank and how successful our communities are. So when we make an investment in a community, it's not just a philanthropic charity sense. It's really to drive the future and success of the company as well as of the broader economy. And so I always like to start with our core values because that's how we ground ourselves. Each employee every day comes with a sense of growing responsibly. And what that means, it's 4 tenets. We want to grow and win in the market share. We want to grow with our customer focus. We want to grow within our risk appetite, and we want to do so sustainably. We have 4 segments rather, of which consumer makes up 40%. We also have wealth management, global banking, global markets. At the bank, we lay out our strategic priorities and execute on this plan. Each year, we have a 200-plus page document that really outlines this in great detail. Our strategic focus areas in the most recent times have been around digital, payments, and technology transformation. For each problem that we look to solve, it essentially boils down to asking ourselves 4 options. Can we build this in-house? Should we go through a vendor? Should we make a minority investment, or should we acquire this company? And each one, of course, has its pros and cons, but it's really grounded into how quickly do we want to go into market? How will we see our cost saves? What is our return on risk-adjusted capital? Where do we stand to gain, and what are the risks? And so I'll give you an example of what I mean by this. If we compare building in-house versus acquiring a company, it really comes down to speed to market. When you acquire a company, you will immediately gain access to the products. You will immediately gain access to the new geographies that they're in. But perhaps less obvious is, should we use a vendor or should we make a minority investment in this vendor? And so typically our team works really closely with our lines of businesses to dive into this question and figure out what should be the answer. We use a lot of vendors, but there are some that really stand to benefit and further improve our return on equity if we're supplementing our existing commercial relationship by influencing their product design or governance. And you can't do that with a vendor contract. So the next time they're raising capital, we go to them and we ask, can we participate in your next equity round? And of course, we do a lot of due diligence to see that. But really what this does, it benefits both sides. For Bank of America, it involves increased revenue growth or cost saves. We're also creating new or gaining exposure to innovative ideas without really having a burden of doing it fully in-house. And then for the company, of course, they have now a very reputable investor, Bank of America, as well as other banks that usually come along because we all try to think about things in the consortium. At the end of the day, these are large problems that we're trying to resolve, and Bank of America alone can't make those come true. So we invest in a lot of companies. We've done this dozens of times, really within our trading platform and FICC and equities, in payments and distributed ledger, among others. Sometimes we make long-term bets. It's not always that making equity investments is actually successful. So just as an example, we entered a joint venture with First Data, and now it's called Fiserv, because they had a recent acquisition. We had this with our merchant services team. So we made a joint venture in 2009 where First Data handles transaction processing, and the joint venture itself manages the sales and customer service. But in 2019, just 10 years later, we decided to end the joint venture because we really see the importance of payments, and we want to have that end-to-end relationship so that we need to fully own it and take it in-house. And instead of making equity investments, we're taking that money and allocating it to ourselves and really building out these true capabilities. And now, of course, we'll consider bolt-on acquisitions, but that's something that's really embedded into our in-house capabilities and not the joint venture. So, of course, every strategic investment opportunity goes through rigorous diligence. As I mentioned, we need to grow within our risk appetite. We have control partners on the legal, tax, finance, compliance, all working together, always understanding what are the pros and cons of doing each of these. And so that's our strategic part. So now moving on to investing in communities, and I've talked about this on Monday as well. We call this the sustainable side of the investing, or the second half of the title. We are believers in stakeholder capitalism, and as our CEO very proudly says, we're able to generate profits and purpose. It's not one or the other. You can really accomplish both. And you can do that through social and through environmental, which we make investments in both. On the social side, as I mentioned on Monday, Bank of America has made a $1.25 billion commitment to address racial equity and economic opportunity that was accelerated by the pandemic, especially to communities of color. It's focused on health, jobs, it's focused on housing and supporting banks that are smaller and focused on community development themselves. A portion of this commitment was allocated to investing in venture capital funds because that is truly the way to support small businesses. And so we had an initial target of $200 million, but today I'm proud to say that we've surpassed to $500 million, over $500 million, committed to 150 venture capital funds. These venture capital funds are based in the U.S., they're focused in the U.S., and the fund mandate that we're looking for is that it's a diverse fund manager who's focused on supporting diverse entrepreneurs. And so what are we trying to solve for by doing this? Some stats for you to take home. As of 2021, only 1.9% of venture capital dollars is allocated to companies with diverse leaders. And funding to Black VCs only makes up 2% of all VC funding in the U.S. Less than 1% of that is funded by Black women. And women, although they make up 45% of the venture capital workforce, they only represent 10% of the key decision makers. And so clearly there's a lack of access to capital in these demographics. And so what we're doing is activating these fund managers and entrepreneurs who are currently underserved. Again, like as I mentioned, we're focused in the US. And the result of that is we've invested in 60% of our 150 fund base into women, 65% to Black GPs, and 21% to Hispanic Latino GPs. As I mentioned again, this is not a charity work. This is seeing an untapped opportunity where we're really going to find our returns come in the next 10 years. And so how are we executing on this plan? We call it providing catalytic capital, and we're providing it in that we're usually the first institutional check that goes to these fund managers, which instills confidence on the fund and bring other LPs to the table as well. And of course, as I mentioned with our strategic side, risk management is also top of mind for us. So the same team on the control partners also work with us end to end to really ensure that we're doing things the right way and in a responsible way. And so a few more stats on our program. Of the 150 funds we've invested to date, they have deployed $7 billion of capital into the U.S. economy. And those have employed to date 20,000 people, primarily in the U.S., some outside, and over 1,500 diverse founders have received this capital. And we're only 35% of the way. So as you know, for VC, you don't immediately receive all the capital at once. They go through capital calls. Of that 500 million, less than half has been actually received to these funds. So there's a lot more room to grow in this. And of course, how we measure success of what we're doing is by tracking our data. We have quarterly financials, audited financials. Dr. Rahman, I think we need to speak later because we need an AI to help us put more data together because we do receive a lot. But in terms of performance, it's too early to tell because we're only 3 years into deploying our capital. And you know, VC funds follow that J curve. So we're expecting within year 6, year 7 to start seeing some actual monetizations occur. And some of our funds actually donate a portion of their carried interest to charity, while others have an accelerator program. So we're looking to continuously track the impact that they're making to the community. That's not only providing capital, but also the other activities that they're doing to support the broader economy. And what Bank of America is doing is not just providing capital, but also providing the non-financial resources. As we've seen through research, it's not just the lack of access to capital, but it's lack of access to the networks that we provide and want to continue sharing to them. And lastly, just to touch on the environmental side, there's a rising global need in putting our time and capital into climate change. In 2015, nearly 200 countries adopted the historic Paris Agreement to reduce global warming and build resilience to climate change, with the overall goal to limit warming to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. Since then, large corporates have set out targets to get to net zero, which is a state in which greenhouse gases going into the atmosphere is balanced by the amount removed from the atmosphere. We, of course, have a sustainable finance team within capital markets that is quickly developing and creating more sophisticated instruments to ensure that we're achieving this goal. And as a large corporation that's serving other large corporations, we also have tools ready to serve those clients' needs because, again, at the end of the day, it's a whole ecosystem. Bank of America is not going to solve this problem on its own, nor is any other company on its own. Since 2021, U.S. peers are investing primarily in energy and clean transportation sectors. Big tech companies are investing in more deals to really gain access to these broader categories. We at Bank of America have an environmental business initiative to accelerate our transition to net zero by 2050. And on top of that, this is where the government comes into play. There are now going to be climate disclosures that are required for all companies to ensure that every year we're tracking towards the goal that we set across. And so our values come down to ensuring that, when we're making these environmental investments, it's within our strategic priorities. So we have a framework set in place to determine where we should be playing and where we should be putting more of our dollars in. And so all of these actions are really to contribute to our broader society. And we're trying to make sure that we have our dollars in places where we're going to see these long-term returns. As I mentioned, really looking at profits and purpose. And with that, a call to action for everyone in this room is that change, although I mentioned requires a lot of people working together, it starts with one person. So having that idea and having that vision is really going to help you drive to all of the successes that you wish to achieve. So I thank you again for listening to me, and we'll be chatting later today. I'm very excited for the later stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Bank of America. And as a matter of fact, what is that we take away? If you have any startups sitting in the room with the relevant solutions that Renee was highlighting, your job is to connect with those ventures and connect with Bank of America to see if you are the right company to invest. There is an action, please. Please take that action. We are moving forward. Now, next topic. So we talked about venture innovation as the, and I think Kerobyan family, we stole something from you. We're now going to call technology diplomacy. We got it. So technology diplomacy it includes investments, as we talked about, capital, and also part of that capital is family office. We were talking about this for 6 months after the Alternative Investments Conference we held in Armenia in November 2022. We've done a lot of work with BDO. We actually established a framework how to help Armenian businesses, family businesses, to move to the next stage of their growth. That is family office. For that reason, we have BDO global representation and global specialist who does this every day, how they do support family offices. So we have Lydia Versali, partner private client services at BDO US. Welcome.
Let me just check the mic. Can everyone hear me? Great. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me with you today and taking the time to listen to me for the next approximately 20 minutes. It's an honor to be here. I know I'm competing with the panel discussion and lunch, so I will do my best to keep the presentation interesting and short. I'm very excited to be part of the conversation today and to have the opportunity to speak with you about the future of family offices as an enterprise. As Emma so kindly introduced me, my name is Lydia Vercelli, and I'm a tax partner at BDO in the Private Client Services Group. I work primarily with high net worth individuals, family offices, and other business owners and wealthy individuals. In my role, I work with a number of family offices, all of them different, and their evolving needs is a large part of my day-to-day. So what is a family office? While I assume the term is familiar to many or most of you in the room, a family office is an investment and governing platform dedicated to fully managing high net worth assets, financial, real estate, and business investments, as well as taxation and succession planning. Family offices are responsible for managing the wealth of a single family group or multiple families, a multifamily office. Sometimes family offices are run solely by family members, and other times they are run by professional firms. These days, what I see most is a combination of the two. Traditionally, family offices focused on business run by and for a single family, with the main function of centralizing the management of significant family wealth, generally over 50 to 100 million of assets, such as the DuPont family office, which was one of the first. Note that this is only a loose definition, with anything in the realm falling in the family office under the family office umbrella. But typically, when we think of family offices, this is what we think of. The role of family office is to execute the family's decisions about how to strategically allocate family capital among competing priorities. Today, we are at a turning point in human history from so many perspectives, including geopolitically, technologically. I don't know if any of you saw the Australian 60 Minutes segment where Tom Steinford interviewed the artificially intelligent robot named Amika, who showed human emotions and apparently did not find Tom attractive, much to his chagrin. In the family office space, too, we are at a point of transition. As the family grows and matures, their needs also evolve. Assessing the family's capital base, risk tolerance, and commitments to business innovation will be key for future success for the family enterprise. In the 1990s, the role of the family office began to shift as the need for executives who could manage complexity and risk on a more sophisticated scale became paramount. In that era, family office executives became guardians of family capital and mitigators of any risks that might jeopardize the family enterprise. In the market today, family office executives understand that technology, talented advisors, and strategic outsourcing of services all ensure they meet these goals without having to build a large organization inside the family office. In the early years of the industry, the family office spent 1/3 of its time counting the assets and making sure ownership allocations were accurate in capital accounts. This process has become more automated as the industry evolved, though I'm still seeing some complexity in this area in my personal practice when things like special allocations and special models come into play. But now there's more time allocated to focus on the greater complexity created by the family. Since the early 2020s, financial services outsourcing has become the more preferred way to serve the family's needs. There are many investment firms that I'm working with who have created or are allocating significant resources towards building out this platform to serve their clients' needs. As a result, partnerships with trusted advisors are a vital component in the efficient operation of the family office. There are 3 themes I will focus on today. 1, education. 2, taxes and tax efficiency, and an increase in private equity investment. Educated owners become active and empowered decision makers. New skill sets for family leaders will be needed in the fast-paced, high-risk world where uncertainty is aplenty and predictable investment returns are harder to guarantee. For us advisors, managing family expectations will require a higher degree of an educational component and more frequent and effective communication to ensure family engagement. Effective communication in the family office arena is a topic in and of itself. But one thing I would like to share on this front, because it comes up a lot when family members ask us at what age they should involve their children in family affairs. And a response I've heard from another BDO advisor who works with families in sorting through issues just like these is this: when you're old enough to keep a secret. For those of us who have kids, we know that it could be age 8 for one child and maybe never for another. For example, I have a daughter who's 7, and she can definitely keep a secret. On the other hand, I have an uncle, and he can't keep anything to himself. He's 69. Skills such as adaptability, creativity, and risk assessment analysis should be prioritized, and there's a growing number of courses that are focusing on these softer skills. There is also a tremendous amount of energy being deployed to add younger advisors to service teams for family offices in light of the retiring baby boomer generation. These individuals have the ability to build strong relationships with wealth inheritors who become future decision makers and trustees for family capital. I am sure you've seen or received invitations to next generation events. Within this theme of increased need for education, there is also a greater interconnectivity between advisors, mostly as a function of increased complexity. I believe it is the best way to serve our clients when we work together and engage in open dialogue to fill the gaps of knowledge and allow issues to surface before we address them with our end clients, the family office. I would like to share with you some trends I'm seeing in my own practice. While it is not consistent for every family, generally I'm seeing an increased desire for an understanding or an imparting of the family's business operations to its younger members. As a tax professional, I am sometimes involved in it strictly in my own subject matter, to pass the baton, so to speak, to another, often younger family member, to take over some component of the functionality of a senior family member. And at other times, we as advisors are pulled into the more delicate task of finding ways to pass on information to other family members, and it becomes our role to learn as much as we can about the family members and their dynamics. I would now like to turn over to taxes and tax efficiency. Taxes have become ever more complex in the past 3 decades alone, and the U.S. tax code has gone from 26,000 pages in 1986 to 70,000 pages in 2016, and growing. This is an almost 3-fold increase in volume and complexity. As a result, the sophistication of tax advisors needed to manage the needs of even a basic family office structure is significant. And this is just the U.S. tax law. When we throw in the added complexity caused by globalization and the increase of foreign wealth or some foreign component to many of the wealthy families we work with, things get even more complicated. One structure that has grown in popularity since the 1990s is the Family Limited Partnership, abbreviated as FLP, or a Family Limited Liability Company, which has been more common in the last 2 decades given its even more flexible nature and other benefits. This structure allows for customized asset allocation for each LP, along with a reduction in estate taxes for minority limited partners or members. FLPs created greater flexibility for owners, but far more complexity for family offices. As a result of first the limitations on 2% deductions, this includes all professional fees, by the way, and then their complete elimination as a result of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, there are now more sophisticated structures out there that have been put in place to preserve the family wealth. You may have read about the Lender case and the Hellman case, to name a few examples. Another opportunity for tax planning lies in philanthropy, whence a family can achieve multiple objectives, contributing to a cause it cares about and increasing tax efficiency at the same time. While some vehicles, like the charitable lead trust, are an especially attractive solution in a low interest rate environment, which we have now moved away from, there are far simpler solutions such as donor advised funds, which accomplish the same goals of a charitable deduction while eliminating much of the responsibility of compliance away from the family, which is often a desired goal. Family offices are also increasingly looking for uncorrelated returns to equities. They are increasingly turning to private equity, real estate, and private debt, as well as exploring other possibilities, such as derivatives. We are also seeing many more investments in private credit. Younger generations are also investing in crypto, SPOCs, and fintech. This wider array of investments is both an investment as well as a tax strategic initiative. We are also seeing a heightened interest in impactful investing, especially among the younger generations. Staying current on new investment alternatives has become a full-time job for investors and their CIOs, whether housed internally or hired externally. This is causing reporting and data management challenges, which, along with hiring challenges, is making life a little more challenging, but also expanding opportunities for advisors. I can't tell you how many calls I get about considering the tax implications of different investments before they're made, as well as considering foreign filing obligations, disclosures, etc. For instance, there's a different tax answer for someone who's a U.S. person who is receiving funds from a foreign parent, a non-U.S. person, in, say, a Swiss account from a U.S. account. Sometimes it's just about implementing a higher allocation towards municipal bonds and sort of simpler technical matters, because it could impact an executive who, say, travels a lot and already files in 20 states. But sometimes the questions are a lot more involved than that. Since it becomes more difficult to balance the exponential growth of a family against a slower growth of family assets, the expression rags to rags in 3 generations comes to mind. These alternative asset classes are crucial, coupled with the appropriate amount of risk tolerance, because unparalleled opportunities for wealth creation exist in newer and developing industries such as AI, automation, and robotics, and blockchain applications, to name a few. The future of family offices lies in adapting to support new and more complex family goals and expectations, from guiding rising entrepreneurs to implementing strategies for social impact. As a new generation prepares to inherit significant family resources and invest in new strategies for wealth creation, as well as causes that matter most to them, family offices will be even more essential to provide families with greater perspective and guidance in a rapidly changing world. Thank you again for your time today, and you have been a wonderful audience.
Since we are now running ahead of the schedule, I would like to have 1 or 2 questions about family offices. Questions? The microphone? Microphone, please.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lydia. It's so impressive to hear woman with a background in finance and auditing and accounting and taxation, and also what would be your best advice as a woman in fin industry to a younger generation to generate generational wealth? What kind of action steps we should take in our 20s, 30s to generate generational wealth?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, thank you for your question, by the way. The first thing that comes to mind is advice that I received as a 20 22 or 23-year-old woman when I first started out in the tax field. And that advice came from my boss at the time, who was a partner, a male, probably in his late 40s. And he told me, he said, Lydia, don't discount your peers. It is, it's easy to think that someone who's more senior to you will be able to help you more, who can sort of more immediately do things, but develop relationships with your peers, because you will grow up together in various sort of connected industries, and you will have a network and a team. And I can't stress enough the importance of having a team, both internally and of peers, sort of man or woman. I think it's very important. Yes?
Hi, my name is Berjay Vazian. As I was listening to your presentation, I was thinking about those of us who are, let's say, age 50 and above. I'm making myself look young now. And who want to engage the next generation, particularly their family, in the future of this so-called family office, to move the ball from being run by the coach to being run by the quarterbacks and the people who are going to actually live the next generation, who may not have already established their process for managing such wealth. What's your advice? How do you think about working with our financial advisors? And for example, few of us are angel investors, and we have invested already in companies and assets and activities that are not on the radar, not easily represented in portfolios. How do we engage the next generation to transition more easily so they can handle things in the future?
Thank you for your question. So this concept of engaging younger generations comes up a lot. By the way, I'm 41, so I'm kind of neither here nor there. But I think there definitely seems to be a trend of the younger generations needing to have a personal interest in the family enterprise, so to speak, or a family office in order to get engaged. We've struggled as a firm or seen others struggle in, say, holding family meetings and trying to engage everyone at the same time. Just scheduling alone becomes very challenging, and to get everyone in the same room at once is difficult. But I think smaller steps and reaching out to individuals on a one-on-one basis and looking for true connectivity to engage them, to interest them, is the way that I do it in my practice, or look for ways where I can really speak to something that's an issue for them, or find something to address a goal of theirs, and I try to build on that. Maybe it's help with executing a payment, just something very basic, but then a relationship begins, and then it grows. If I see an article or an event, doesn't even have to be tax related or on point with your subject matter, that I think will appeal, that's just what I've done, and it's the most successful thing I've found so far.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, if any of you is thinking, why are we talking about family offices? One more time. 89% of Armenian capital businesses are run by family offices in Armenia. We have tremendous potential. So we are partnering with BDO in Armenia. Again, we have a full process how to onboard and how to work with us to take Armenia to a next level. And you are the players. The slower you move, the slower the economy grows. The slower your money grows. So please think about when and how you want to participate and join this next stage of the Armenian capital and Armenian family offices growth. We do have a little bit more time. I would like to ask you 10-minute break. Take a 10-minute break, come back 12:15. Thank you.
Ժամանակին ունեի երազանք, բացել իմ առաջին ռեստորանն այստեղ, Միացյալ Նահանգներում։ Ինձ օգնեցին իմ ընկերներն ու բարեկամները։ Հայերով ստեղծեցինք ռեստորան, որն ավելին է, քան շինություն։ Սա իմ փոքրիկ հայրենիքն է։ Հետաքրքիր բան է կյանքը։ Ժամանակին ներդնում էին նրանք, հիմա արդեն ես։ Եվ այդ ներդրումները ես կատարում եմ իմ մեծ հայրենիքում, Հայաստանում, որն ինձ աջակցել է իր սիրով, իր օգնող ձեռքով ու ազգի ջերմությամբ։ Ես ինքս եմ ընտրում, թե որքան եւ որտեղ ներդնել իմ գումարը։ Սա է զարգացող ապագայի ճանապարհը, ապագայի, որը նաեւ քոնն է։ Ներդնելով արֆի, ներդնում ես քո մեջ։ Արֆին պարզապես հարթակ չէ, արֆին դա մենք ենք, իրար օգնելիս։ Արֆի, հնարավորը իրական է։ Ժամանակին ունեի երազանք։ Բացել իմ առաջին ռեստորանն այստեղ, Միացյալ Նահանգներում։ Ինձ օգնեցին իմ ընկերներն ու բարեկամները։ Հայերով ստեղծեցինք ռեստորան, որն ավելին է, քան շինություն։ Սա իմ փոքրիկ հայրենիքն է։ Հետաքրքիր բան է կյանքը։ Ժամանակին ներդնում էին նրանք, հիմա արդեն ես։ Եվ այդ ներդրումները ես կատարում եմ իմ մեծ հայրենիքում, Հայաստանում, որն ինձ աջակցել է իր սիրով, իր օգնող ձեռքով ու ազգի ջերմությամբ։ Ես ինքս եմ ընտրում, թե որքան եւ որտեղ ներդնել իմ գումարը։ Սա է զարգացող ապագայի ճանապարհը, ապագայի, որը նաեւ քոնն է։ Ներդնելով արֆի, ներդնում ես քո մեջ։ Արֆին պարզապես հարթակ չէ, արֆին դա մենք ենք, իրար օգնելիս։ Արֆի, հնարավորը իրական է։
չեմ հիմա, բայց ոչինչ։ So it's forward. Հա, որ հանկարծ ես չտանեմ հետս։ Չէ, իհարկե։ Ես ուղղակի բան էի անում, ուզում էի հասկանալ առանց
Ժամանակին ունեի երազանք, բացել իմ առաջին ռեստորանն այստեղ, Միացյալ Նահանգներում, ինձ օգնեցին իմ ընկերներն ու բարեկամները, հայերով ստեղծեցինք ռեստորան, որն ավելին է քան շինություն, սա իմ փոքրիկ հայրենիքն է, հետաքրքիր բան է կյանքը, ժամանակին ներդնում էին նրանք, հիմա արդեն ես, և այդ ներդրումները ես կատարում եմ իմ մեծ հայրենիքում, Հայաստանում, որն ինձ աջակցել է իր սիրով, իր օգնող ձեռքով ու ազգի ջերմությամբ։ Ես ինքս եմ ընտրում, թե որքան և որտեղ ներդնել իմ գումարը։ Սա է զարգացող ապագայի ճանապարհը, ապագայի, որը նաև քոնն է։ Ներդնելով արֆի, ներդնում ես քո մեջ։ Արֆին պարզապես հարթակ չէ, արֆին դա մենք ենք, իրար օգնելիս։ Արֆի, հնարավորը իրական է։
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. 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 Thank you very much. We are going back to our Orion Summit 2023. The next sessions will be panels and presentations. The next one that we're going to invite to the stage, in this case it's a panel, run by Aleksandr Shaghikyan from BDO Armenia. Aleksandr, please join me at the podium, invite your panel. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, congratulations as we made to the day 4. I see some of the folks are not in the room. Probably we lost them at the New York bars. But still, I mean, many are in the room, and we are going to have this interesting conversation on alternative investments. Let me invite our distinguished colleagues of the panel. Diana Arzumanyan, CEO, co-founder of Orion Worldwide Innovation Armenia. Diana, please join us. Sergey Grigoryan, Deputy CEO of Armenian National Interest Fund. Sergey, please. Vahan Khachaturian, Chief Legal Officer of Fastex. Vahan, please.
Hi.
Yerevan Sarkisyan, Covenant Venture Partner and founder at Granatus Ventures. Yerevan, please. And we have Mark Minasyan, Partner, Private Client Services at BDO USA. Mark, please. So before we dive into the conversation, I want to highlight this incredible job Emma and the team does in these 3.5 days. The level of the conversations, the insight shares are really inspiring, and to keep that up for the coming weeks, months, and years, we have to deliver some stuff. We have to do a job. And also today's session is for showcasing what has been developed within Armenian ecosystem since 2022. As many of you been engaged with Orion for some time, and you've probably been there and remember the last year's Orion Summit in Yerevan. And in November, we held with Orion also alternative investment conference in Yerevan and start this dialogue on PE, VC, corporate venture capital, family office, and we are going to continue this conversation within this panel session. So with that, may I ask to put the first slide, please? Probably you look into this slide and think that Aleksandr is really a lazy guy. What a lazy presentation and slide. So what I want to ask you is that what comes to your mind when you see those two bubbles, a large one, a small one? Any thoughts, any comments prior we dive into the conversation?
Growth.
Okay, what else? Size? No, size is a comparative size, so those are real size numbers.
Impact
Volume
of,
numbers.
Alternative investments in portfolio.
Oh, it's probably I can calculate them, so no. So the large one is Armenian debt, and the small one is Armenian financial service market equity. You see the size difference? So we are going to fix that together, right? Can we have the next slide, please, which is not as lazy as this one? Yeah, so here we go. Private debt. Banks' debt allocated into Armenian economy, 10.3 billion USD. Government bond, excluding euro bonds within the market, which is allocated in the stock market of Armenia, 3.6. Corporate bond, 1.2. So sum up together, it's 15 billion USD debt market. And we have a tiny fraction of equity market, some 600 to 700 million USD, Armenian listed companies at the Armenian stock market. And P plus VC, colleagues are going to argue with me because the figures are not clear within the market, but roughly it's going to be 200 to 300 deployed capital probably, if we sum up both together, P and VC. Together, entire equity is under 1 billion. So compare 1 to 15. So it's about 5-6% of the total financial service market. Yeah, and something probably is wrong with this. And by saying we are going to increase the equity market, we do not think and say that someone is going to eat the lunch of the commercial bankers who are doing the debt stuff in the market. It's going to continue, but the equity is going to increase in much accelerated pace. That's the idea. So with this, let me to jump into the first question to my panel. When it comes to private equity, which is comparably a young industry in Armenia, and ANIF has been one of the industry early stage PE funds, which is a sovereign wealth fund in Armenia. It has couple subsidiary organizations, Entrepreneur Plus State, RFI, which is going to present the firm later on, did a sort of quite development stuff in the country for private equity with allocations into the SME sector as well as into the large enterprises. So the first question is Sergey. Sergey, how you see the private equity's role into the changing the picture we have showcased it? What sort of strategic private equity priorities are going to fix these? Do we need funds which are more industry focused, stage focused, like turnaround funds? What are your views on the development of the industry further?
Thank you for the question, Aleksandr. So first of all, I have to say that prior to the development of any market, like a PE market or any other markets, there is a huge work that needs to be done with the entrepreneurs in terms of financial literacy. When ANIF came to Armenian market, we created ANIF, few entrepreneurs understood what an equity financing is. They were used to bank lending, pawn shop style bank lending, and we had to do an immense effort to educate them, to make them understand what an equity financing is in general. So that is the utmost priority, to educate entrepreneurs, and we were not supposed to do that, but we have to do that, otherwise our model will not work. As per the strategic goals, yes, you're absolutely right. There has to be a diversity, not just ANIF and not just a state-owned entity helping the entrepreneurs and the investors from abroad to come to Armenia, but also a variety of various financial institutions have to arrive to Armenia, and I know that Central Bank is doing an effort in that direction. On the other hand, even us, we are now, because we're kind of a startup. We started in 2019. We've done a lot, but still we're a startup. So it is just now that we are calibrating the scope of our fund, having it more focused on certain sectors, in particular the ones which are accelerating the exports from Armenia. So yeah, I guess I will stop here.
Sure. If I can go further with the follow-on, I mean, and what's your view on the potential stock markets echoing with the PE? I mean, do you see the opportunity for more exit routes recently, like Warsaw stock market, both controlling stake in the Armenian stock market, double listing opportunities? I mean, I know within the industry, one of the major challenges are exit routes. We have like LBO, MBO stuff, right? Probably you are going to look after some Eastern European or Gulf countries PE funds to exit to them at some stage for some firms, right? What about the stock market and overall exit routes? Well, what's the feeling? What's the...
Well, the feeling is, well, it was very greatly reflected in the slide that you were demonstrating. So the stock market is tiny, and definitely that is the important point to be elaborated on. Otherwise, we will never ever have a growing financial market. If we don't have this equity market growing, we will never ever. We have just a few companies listed. And I think that the experience of these companies going public was a pretty showcase, which can be duplicated in a number of cases. So it is also of extreme importance for us to have this exit opportunities for the companies, because currently both in almost all business lines of ANIF, we have a situation when we tracked investments, we co-invest with the companies, but then we have a situation that we need to find a way to exit. And you are very right that creating a working stock market will help us in that. And this relates both to Entrepreneur Plus State, the anti-crisis fund. So we have this problem there because the main instrument to exit is a buyback from the other shareholders, which is not a healthy situation. So it's for companies to grow and to go to other markets, it's not a healthy situation. And then we have the same problem with ARFI. The Armenian legislation currently prohibits to publicly offer the shares that the investors own in the companies, crowd-invested companies. So that is prohibited, and we're working on changing that. That is one of the important pains that we have now, and we're trying to solve.
Perfect. Thank you, Sergey. Mark, let me turn to you. Lydia made a nice presentation and reflected a bit on the videos and similar, actually, advisors across the globe practice when it comes to the family business, family offices. Would you reflect a bit more in this context? I mean, private equity, what do we do, or firms like us do, actually, and what insight you would like to share with us within the Armenia-US context of the private equity development?
Absolutely. BDO has a very strong global private equity practice with a really vast team of professionals all over the world, and we can help venture funds and private equity funds with every stage of their life cycle. And it's so important just to be connected with the right advisors that can help you to get all the way through your early stages to the exit. And we can, some of the services that our private equity group can do is due diligence on the buy side and sell side. We can look at operational efficiencies and also portfolio efficiencies and how we can save there, cost structures, and eventually bring you up to an exit to get the ROI that everybody is looking for. So we have the resources to be able to be one point of contact for all the needs of the fund, because as the fund grows, the needs might change, but there might be tax needs, there might be assurance needs, there might be advisory needs, digital needs, and by having a global private equity practice, we can service all those needs. And the analogy we like to use is it's like building a house. And you build a house, you need your specialist, you need your electrician, you need your plumber, you need your carpenter. But before you do all that, you need the architect. You need the architect to design the house. And that's what a firm like BDO can do, is be the architect to design the plan for your fund, and through, as I said, through the whole life cycle of bringing it through the initial stages all the way up to the exit. And that's really where we can add value to all phases of the growth.
Thanks, Mark. I will back and forth with my questions, trying to cover all the 4 areas. I mean, three of them are obviously asset classes: PE, VC, and CVC, and family office is sort of a structure and a tool. So let me go to the VC, then we'll back to a PE again. So, I mean, Armenia's, just to give a quick overview on the VC space within the country, Armenia has actually a couple angel networks. There are pre-seed VC funds. There are seed stage VC funds. And Mr. Minister yesterday told about new later seed Series A fund, which is going to launch soon, as far as I understood, which is great news, because before, any Armenian startup after the seed round been juggling around finding a global VC funds to raise for the late seed or Series A, so that's good news. So turning to Yervant, who's been running a VC fund and been quite engaged in the recent decade within the industry. So I mean, when we look to the Armenian ecosystem, it's sort of a quite tied with the Valley ecosystem. I mean, many startup founders have HQs in California, been Delaware domiciled, and have back offices, R&Ds, large teams in Armenia. So what's your view, Yervant, on these these small, vibrant ecosystems, Armenia's linkage with such a mature, well-established ecosystem as the U.S. ecosystem is, and what sort of opportunities can raise in the upcoming years for Armenian founders and startups within those two ecosystems?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question. So, yeah, Armenia has very vibrant ecosystem, and it's connected to U.S., as you rightly mentioned. The connection is strong, but we need to make it deeper. We need to make much more effort in terms of increasing the number of companies in Armenia that we create, increasing more capital going to the innovation ecosystem and investing into those companies. So in order to really become visible player in this area, we need to increase both the size and number of companies and capital going there. So there is a few points that I thought I'd bring up that we need to do. One is branding. Mm-hmm. Armenia, 10 years ago, when we were just starting the fund, it wasn't known as a place for innovation. There weren't startups. Now, after 10 years, we see VCs that have invested in a number of Armenian companies. For example, Sierra Ventures, based out of Bay Area. They have invested in a number of companies. There is a number of companies that went through Y Combinator. So Armenia became visible in that sense. But let me ask a question. How many unicorns does Armenia have?
We have 3 number. Other.
So
other
any other? So official, I was looking at the Enterprise Armenia brochure, and it's very well prepared, and it highlights Armenia as place that with strong ecosystem and a lot of facts. And one of the facts is there is one unicorn, and that's PixArt. Yeah, PixArt is a unicorn, and that's great. And Hovane Savoyan with Artavaz, then Merabian and Mikhail Vartanyan, they have been this shining star that we are all proud of. But there are 3 other shining stars that we are not talking about. And those, one is present in this room. Fastex is part of Soft Construct group. And that's probably not a unicorn. I would say it's a decacorn. There is no official data about the revenues. There is no valuation, basically because the company was bootstrapped. So bootstrapped companies don't publish their valuations until they go public. So Soft Construct has how many employees? 7,000? 7,000 employees. So if you compare it to any other company that has that number of employees, it's probably not Facebook, but it's somewhere in between of startup and a Facebook. So I'm sure it's a decacorn. There is another company called Digitane, which is your competitor, based in Armenia as well. By the way, there is very strong gaming and betting industry in Armenia, which I would say there is kind of people are trying to hide it and kind of not tell betting. I don't have any problems with saying there is betting industry in Armenia, and that's creating a lot of jobs and also bringing a lot of capital to Armenia, a lot of attention to Armenia. So Digitane is another one. They have probably 3,000 employees. So that's kind of the size, and they have created 3 separate companies. And I was very impressed by the vision of the founder when he told that the goal is to create 3 IPOs out of Digitane. So the plan is to grow those companies and take them to IPO. So there is Digitane, maybe more. And there is Service Titan. Service Titan is started out of Glendale, Little Armenia in US, and founded by 2 Armenians, 2 Armenian immigrants, and they have started big operation in Armenia. And to me, that's the 4th unicorn, although it wasn't started in Armenia. But if you look at Estonia, Estonia is home to unicorns, and they are marketing themselves as the highest unicorn per capita country in the world. They have 8 unicorns, and out of those 8, I can name one, TransferWise, which is now Wise, which started in London by an Estonian, and they have an Estonian team in Estonia, but it's, by all means, it's a UK company. So similarly, we have Service Titan, and we should talk about this. So we should tell we have 4 Armenian unicorns. So branding is critical. We're not showing what we have. There is many other points that we still need to work on. One is airlinks, and I'm sure government is working on those. There is no connection, direct connection to any US cities. New York, California, London are critical, because if you want to bring someone to Armenia, if you invite them, they ask, how long does it take? You say, well, it takes this number of connections and this number of hours, then this conversation becomes much more difficult. There is need to do fund of funds as well, sovereign wealth fund, to invest in number of funds. That's another point that we really need to focus. So capital is critical. We need to put a lot more capital into the development of the both PE and VC, and that's a very good chart that you've shown. Talent is another limiting factor. We need much more investment into talent, but also we need to bring talent outside. Diaspora is obvious choice. We need to have more people going to Armenia, but besides diaspora, there is different talent from different countries. Recently, we were looking at one of the companies that I'm investor in, opening second development center outside of Armenia, and guess what? After looking at many different places, the company, which is headquartered in UK, decided that we're going to do second development center in UK because the price differential is not that great anymore. The prices have increased in many countries, so we can attract people also to Armenia from UK. Suddenly that becomes not as crazy as it used to be. So the different areas that we really need to focus on.
Thanks, Yerevan, for sharing those inspiring stories and insights. And fortunately, we have a Decacorn's representative into this panel, Vahan. So with your vast legal background, Vahan, working for such a large firm, what's your view on the legislative sort of a connection of Armenia and USA, especially Delaware, where many startups are domiciled? There is a debate. I'm not sure it's a debate, but there are people in Armenia thinking that. One group of people thinking that Armenia is going to position itself as a sort of an extension to Silicon Valley, which typically Israel did, and a couple other stories, probably Estonia is one of them. And other group thinks that we have to develop Armenia's ecosystem, but it's going to come with a time, like 5-10 years at least. And there are others who think that we have to do both in parallel. So what's your insight on those connections and legislation when it comes to domiciling a firm which is going to be unicorn after some time?
Well, in Armenia, we have regulations. We recently had some, like probably 1 or 2 years ago, some reform where I think it was initiated by ANIF, that a lot of things has been changed because there were a lot of obstacles for private equity investments and exits. That also addressed a lot of issues for VC investments because they're pretty much very similar, right? But still, there are a lot of obstacles in our legal regime that is not making it the best landscape for VC or PE investments. Of course, as the benchmark or the best jurisdiction for VC investments or startups being set up is Delaware. And we probably need to kind of look into this and try to kind of implement those tools and regulations in Armenian system. But it's not going to be easy because as I am also a common law lawyer and civil law lawyer, I can tell you that there is a big difference. It's not easy to bring common law jurisdictions, rules, and regulations to the civil law regime. That's first, and the courts do not work the same way. So then there is another thing. We have some kind of a visual thinking that if we change the laws, if we bring the best, lawyers, if we adopt the most suitable or the most kind of business-oriented regulations, then we will become some like second Delaware. Unfortunately, that's not going to be the case. Unfortunately, Delaware is going to be number one favorite for many reasons. For, again, common law jurisdiction, courts, precedents, for years of precedents. and regulations. And also Delaware is in the United States, in the biggest economy of the world. So, and for that reason, we have to, of course, work still on our regulations, because even though a lot of the fundraising companies are based in here, meaning the base, which is kind of acquiring the equity investments, right? But we have a lot of also the kind of satellite companies that are working from Armenia. We also have to support them. Probably we should focus on that rather than the ones that are acquiring investments. But of course, one of the things that we mentioned that was mentioned here was that private equity markets growth is important for the development of economy, as you mentioned initially, right, Aleksandr? So we have to also work on regulations to make them to operate easily. And it's not just about regulations, and as rightfully was mentioned, it's also about the mentality of the people in Armenia, because it's not easy for people in Armenia to kind of understand that giving up an equity, even in VCs, not just like private equity, growth companies, but like also technology companies. A lot of people do not really understand that giving up some portion of their equity is actually a great way for exponential growth, rather than like, you just invest and the growth that it could take for you like 2 years takes like 20 years. And I have seen some startups in Armenia, technology startups, that are like proudly mentioning that they never took money from VC, but that's probably not the best thing to be proud of. So there are a lot of rooms to work on, not just regulatory, but also like culture-wise, mentality, and I think, this kind of gatherings and also probably some educational acceleration things can help and support on this. Not just like for investment-wise, but also for FastEx, for example, when you're talking about, right? But we want to grow in Armenia, and we don't have issues with, of course, this part of regulations, but we have issues with other parts of regulations, which are securities and stuff. So overall, there is a lot of need of working on this, and we need some good talent in also government side, because at the end of the day, government is proposing this. Business is always ready to help. We are ready. FastEx is ready to help. But the government also needs this kind of good talent to push this.
Thanks, Vahan. Getting back quickly to PE, Sergey. Do you think when and how we can be sort of attractive, interesting for potential USA, or let's more focus on US, but reflect if you think Eastern European or Central European PE funds might be interested. Those PE funds, when and how attract them into the Armenian capital market, and at what stage? I'm not talking about KKR, Apollo, I'm talking about second, third, fourth tier PE funds, right? What's your vision of that?
I want to continue Yerevan's thought about the branding of not only countries, not only companies in Armenia, but also the country itself. So we have to do great work here to, we have our culture, we have ages of culture, but we are never ever exposing it in a proper way to the audience around the world. So people have to know about Armenia. Yerevan and I, we were in London last week, and I was representing myself as a representative of Armenia, and many people asked, where is Armenia? What is Armenia? So people do not know where Armenia is. We Armenians, we all know, but people around the world don't. So it has to be a product placement type of a thing. There have to be more unicorns if we promote and grow them. And this way, as people are talking today about Estonia, they will start talking about Armenia as a unicorn-generating nation. And I strongly believe that we have all the potential. We have to change a mindset a bit. We have to have the understanding, as Vahan was saying, that giving away a part of your company doesn't mean that you lose everything. It's better. You get advice. You get new expertise. It's very important. Networking. So, a number of things, but I think the most important, coming back to what I said in the beginning, is the branding of a country itself.
Perfect. Thanks, Sergey. So going into the family office stuff, so Armenia is predominantly family business-owned economy. Officially, there are no family offices at the moment. There are quasi-family office-like structures in the country, sort of holdings and centralized teams who are in charge for managing the assets, but those are not formal family offices. So, and we with Orion colleagues, Emma, Diana, and the team, initiated this family office sort of a movement in the country to start talking and educate people about family office importance, about succession planning, about managing assets across different jurisdictions, about multiplying their wealth. So, Diana, would you reflect a bit on what is the plan of Orion? We really appreciate the strategic partnership with Orion at BDO. So what are your thoughts? I mean, what's going on in the market? What are the challenges, opportunities embraced? Please share.
Thank you, Aleksandr, for a great questions. And as Emma told, and you also share, Armenian business, 90% is concentrated on family businesses, families. And it means it's the right time and timely to speak about family offices, foundations in Armenia. And that is why 6 months ago, Orion with BDO organized 2 days seminars about alternative investments. And one of the panels of our summits was specialized for family offices, foundations, and opportunities in Armenian market. And I truly believe that Armenia right now have a great potential for foundation family offices as a service. And we working with BDO to have a special purpose service line that families can take and structure for them, because the experts like you, Aleksandr, partner in BDO, and Aaron Chilingalian, as Emma always told him about him as a tax expert in Armenian, it will be great opportunity to offer like a tailored field for the family offices, Armenian family offices, for their future generation. And I think the main lessons learned from the mature ecosystems for the family offices, I want to mention first, the families need that like a long-term strategic investments plan for their families and the for generation. They are doing like a 6-7 years like protection, but now they need long-term for their generation to transfer that money or capital. The second point I want to mention that should learn from mature family offices is partnership, co-investments, because BAJ had that opportunity and we are working with world-class family offices. In our portfolio, we have Metaplanet, a family office that is founded by Skype co-founder. They are invested in our portfolio. It means that Armenian family offices can also invest, co-invest with them and learn that experience, like knowledge, share knowledge, to invest, how the decisions make the family offices. And the third lesson that I want to mention, the families should invest in education, in their staff, in their families, to get that opportunity for the transfer, the capital. Yeah, that's all.
Perfect, Diana. Thanks. With this, great insights on how important is the strategy for a family office. Let me turn to the Mark, who has a hands-on significant expertise and experience working with family offices and family business. Mark, what it looks like a typical efficient family office structure? What is important to look at? What are your insights from working with HNWIs and office structures? It works.
So in the U.S., a lot of people, when they think of family offices, they think of the old-fashioned single-family office and the large multi-billionaire families, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, the Carnegies. And even though those type of offices have a significant amount of wealth, that's really just a very small percentage of the makeup of the family office structure in the U.S. There are single-family offices, but what we see a lot more now are what we call multi-family offices, where it's one group of family office will manage the investments and the assets of 2 or more families. And that's a lot of these family offices, multifamily offices can start as single-family offices, and then they branch out into multifamily offices. And what we see is it's usually a founder or someone going through an exit and having a big liquidity event that then is when they start thinking about family offices and what the needs are and what the goals of the family are. And the goals of family offices are pretty similar around the world and on a global basis. Obviously, philanthropy is a big part of it, managing the assets and passing wealth on to the next generations. And we look at the family office structure. About 75% of family offices are involved heavily in charitable endeavors and philanthropy, and a lot of them do have structured plans of their giving over the lifetime and to pass down to the next to generation, G2 and G3. We also are now seeing a big uptick in alternative investments in crypto. Around 75% of family offices are either invested in cryptocurrencies or heavily interested in investing in cryptocurrencies in the U.S. So we're seeing a big uptick in that over the last few years, as I'm sure globally we're seeing that as well. Part of the issue that's very, very important is how to pass the wealth down to G2 and G3. And what we're seeing is that the younger generations are, besides being more interested in the cryptos and the alternative investments and peer-to-peer lending, they're also very interested in sustainable investing and geopolitical landscape and where they're investing and how that's going. So that's a very big way to not only get G2 and G3 engaged, but also be able to pass on that legacy and adapt to what the changing views are and what they want to do with the investment and how they manage the family assets. There was more, in 2022, there wasn't as much due to the recession, not as much activity in startups or investments in startups. That's coming back. We're seeing in 2023. And if we look at where family offices in the U.S. are investing, it really mirrors the sector trends that we're seeing. SaaS is a big investment, fintech is a big investment, AI are big investments. So it parallels what we're seeing in the sectors for that type of investments in the family office structure. So, but I would say that really the questions we hear a lot is what's the best way to get G2 and G3 engaged, and my colleague Lydia gave some fabulous examples about that in her speech as well. But that's really a lot of the questions that we're getting from the elder people in the family office.
Thanks, Mark. The next asset class, which has a huge potential and importance for the economy, we believe, and we work with Orion on that, is corporate venture capital. As far as we know, within Armenia, there is no official CVC launched, but again, there are quasi-CVC-like structures in the country. But we see that has a huge importance for the different sector firms for fueling their long-term strategic aspirations, especially when it comes to the business model transformations. So they simply can invest into the startups of their industry and later on integrate with their business model the successful ones. So as far as I know, FAST has some sort of experience within the firm embracing startup culture and giving people a floor and a room to build something interesting. Vahan, would you reflect on your vision and thoughts on the importance of this CVC within Armenia?
So actually, previously we thought about launching our own corporate venture capital fund. And then we realized that we are getting into too much different areas and we are not focusing on our existing businesses. I'm not saying that this is out of table. Of course, this is something that we may still in the future get back to. But as you mentioned rightfully, we are sometimes investing in startups. It's not per se a corporate venture capital fund, but it is, we do, whenever we find something as synergies or some startups that can have so many relations to our existing products or services, we do consider acquiring them or investing in them. We have already some of those. For example, Ucraft is a result of investment from Softconstruct, right? And we had some thoughts about when FTX exploded about acquiring some of their products or services or companies. Unfortunately, we didn't. So we do look for kind of startups and targets to invest. It's not out of table, but in structural wise, it's not there. But one day maybe we'll have one.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Orhan. Yevan, would you like to add your thoughts when you compare VC with CVC? I mean, especially in light of the, for instance, recent 2022 banking sector net profit doubling. I mean, there are industries in the country. I'm not pitching for the banks to open CVCs. There is central bank regulation. But I mean, there are developments within the country, and firms are getting more and more bottom line multipliers, and they are doing good. And final shareholders also are pushing management to launch something interesting. I mean, something long-term, something which can really benefit the firm and the stakeholders more broadly. What are your views on that?
Yeah, thank you. So I think it's an educational process. If you haven't done investments in risky VC type of ventures, then it's difficult to really start. So I think it's important because there is innovation and getting access to the best startups, to the products developed by the best startups is critical to compete in today's economy, even if that's regulated industry and operates within borders of Armenia, like banking industry. Still, there is competitive pressures. For other types of industries, the pressures are even stronger. So, for example, for agriculture, and there is a lot of innovation that's happening in agri-tech. There is, alternative protein type of companies that have come aboard based on plant-based food, but also cell-based cultivated meat, which is already starting being offered, marketed. For example, Singapore was the first country that officially allowed selling meat, cultured meat. So if you don't know what cultured meat is, it is meat that is produced in bioreactors. So kind of same process that we used for centuries, for thousands of years to produce beer. It's similar process. It's fermentation, and it's much more complex in a sense to get the texture of the meat and other products. But that's going to completely disrupt the way agriculture is done. So if agricultural companies are not aware of that, they are not on top, they are not investing into those sort of innovations, they will probably become irrelevant at this time when that becomes mass produced, and only those who have premium products will be able to compete in the market by just being natural and premium organic, but the mass market will be under very strong pressure from those types of new types of producers, and basically you will have to buy technology from countries like US. Israel is very strong in that area. There is UK, Europe, Netherlands. Some specific those are food security is critical part for national security, and those countries are investing. So agri-tech, it's not obvious from the very beginning, but it's another sector that is the largest sector of Armenian economy, and it has to also start investing into those sort of ventures. But the way to do it is not starting CVCs from day one. Like you have to have expertise, understanding how to invest into those type of companies, how to select, what to invest, what not to invest. So it may be that, for example, the owners, the shareholders, or the second generation of the owners will do angel investing. So they should be joining angel groups. That's an easy step to do, and start investing small stakes in different companies and learn. Then they can invest into VC funds. There is a number of VC funds that already exist in Armenia, and they can do investments there. The third option is to start CVC arms, and also it can be step-by-step approach, but I believe it's critical. It's for banking industry, for finance industry, for agri-tech, for telecoms. All these companies need to be doing this sort of targeted investments because it's strategic, first of all. Second, it's finance. I wouldn't say it's mainly for finance. For the CVC, it's always some sort of strategic angle that they are focusing on.
Thank you, Yervan. What I like about Orion Summit is that people come here with practical approach for deal making, for sharing ideas. The other day I heard ideas from Armenian folks opening a new private equity fund in Armenia. So the question is to you, Sergey, how competitive is current PE landscape in the market? Are there any opportunities? They've been talking about somewhere 30 to 50 million fund to be launched in the country. I mean, private guys, not sovereign guys.
Yeah, well, they're very welcome. They're very welcome. So, as I said before, the more private equities we have, or any type of investment vehicles we have in Armenia, the better for Armenian economy, the better for Armenian entrepreneurs and for the startups growing. And you're talking about competition, and we can visualize a number of things. Let's say the product that we're currently working on and that is going to be launched very soon also for investors, the ARFI platform, crowdfunding platform. So this was an initiative to help Armenians from abroad to invest in Armenia. So there is a number of Armenians here who do not live permanently in Armenia. How many of you have made an investment in Armenia? Can you raise hands, please? Okay, so there was not a forest of hands, as you saw. So next time, while presenting at the Orion Summit, I would love to have not just Emma and several other For
okay,
what?
Stand up. Who wants or did an investment in Armenia?
No, they raised hands already.
Oh. It's more impressive.
Okay, okay. So, as we're talking about alternative investments, and crowd investing is one of the ways, we want to see all people in this hall raising their hands or standing up, as Emma is telling. But here again, we want to see not just Armenians, we want to see also non-Armenians, but they need to know about Armenia first. So, yeah, you will have a presentation of my colleague Edgar Evan later regarding ARFI platform, so you will learn more how it works and the purpose of it. But one of the reasons why we created it is that most of the Armenians who didn't raise hands, probably they wanted to make an investment, but they never had a tool to do so. So ARFI is there to open up doors online to access Armenian successful companies.
Sure, thanks Sergey, and we are going to learn about ARFI next. So we have 5 minutes left. I want the last question, a quick shout out, under 1 minute please. Looking into the future, 5-10 years, what it looks like the alternative investment landscape in Armenia? Where to cement the competitive advantage, if it ever can be cemented in this quick evolving world. But what are your quick reaction and comments where we can be competitive when it comes to PE, VC, CVC, family office staff? Please, Yervan, shall we start with you, please?
Yeah, thank you. So regarding crowdfunding platform, I just would like to mention as well about another crowdfunding platform called Crowd Ventures, which is in process of being set up. So it's focused on the innovation and startups type of ventures. In terms of where, so your question was where to focus?
Where are the competitive advantages?
Yeah, competitive advantage is the engineering and talent that Armenia has. So AI has been booming worldwide with OpenAI making big waves, and Armenia should benefit from that. So AI technology, and we need to invest more into R&D and science. That's critical. Like different technologies. I mentioned about cultivated meat. We don't have anything in that area. That's critical. Quantum computing. There is a lot of different technologies, and then that would enable larger scale P and VC type of investments.
Thanks, Johan, very much. Diana, your turn.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that in 10 years, Armenia will have well-established like VCs, CVCs, and family offices. It will be one of the key factors for the growth economy. And the things like education, long-term strategic prediction, and investments will help us to grow faster in our region and become one of the like decision makers countries in our region.
Thanks, Diana. Sergey, please.
I will be very short. I would consider that alternative ways of investing in Armenia are successful when or if let's say, Ministry of Finance comes to ARFI platform and issues bonds for $500 million.
Unfortunately, we do not have Ministry of Finance here, but we have Minister and Deputy of Ministry of Economy and Deputy of High Tech. Vahan.
So I think that in 5 to 10 years, definitely there will be a different scenario in VC and PE world. The other day, me and Yervan were discussing like how things were when Granatos just started, like 10 years ago, right? And there were no many funds, there were no many target startups. Definitely this growth will continue, but if you want to have an exponential growth, like real growth, we have to invest in education. Not just science, but any forms of education, because we also need professional services, we also need some other supporting services for these things to grow. And in every problem, the underlying reason is education in Armenia.
Sure. Thank you, Vahan. Mark, what is the view from outside?
I think Armenia is very well positioned for significant growth in the next 5 to 10 years, and I think the technology will lead the way. The technology in Armenia is not a secret to the rest of the world now. The wine still is, but the technology isn't. So I think the technology will lead the way for the growth, and especially in the alternative investment landscape, and Armenia is well positioned for that in the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you very much. Thanks to our panelists. I think we did a good job. We are on time. Please loud applause to our great panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Aleksandr. Well done. We are going to have the lunch. Second floor, you'll be escorted to the room. We're coming back at 2:15. Enjoy.
Ժամանակին ունեի երազանք։ Բացել իմ առաջին ռեստորանն այստեղ, Միացյալ Նահանգներում։ Ինձ օգնեցին իմ ընկերներն ու բարեկամները։ Հայերով ստեղծեցինք ռեստորան, որն ավելին է, քան շինություն։ Սա իմ փոքրիկ հայրենիքն է։ Հետաքրքիր բան է կյանքը։ Ժամանակին ներդնում էին նրանք, հիմա արդեն ես։ Եվ այդ ներդրումները ես կատարում եմ իմ մեծ հայրենիքում, Հայաստանում, որն ինձ աջակցել է իր սիրով, իր օգնող ձեռքով ու ազգի ջերմությամբ։ Ես ինքս եմ ընտրում, թե որքան և որտեղ ներդնել իմ գումարը։ Սա է զարգացող ապագայի ճանապարհը, ապագայի, որը նաև քոնն է։ Ներդնելով արֆի, ներդնում ես քո մեջ։ Արֆին պարզապես հարթակ չէ, արֆին դա մենք ենք իրար օգնելիս։ Արֆի, հնարավորը իրական է։